Welcome to Minds on a Mission, the podcast where we explore the journeys that challenge us, change us, and chart the best course for our best selves. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music /Audible, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Deezer, Podbean, Castbox. We're on pretty much everything. I'm your host, Samantha Bailey, an entrepreneur and content creator, and today's lovely guest is Chrissy Bernal. I think I said that right. Oh, can't hear you.
Oh, there we go. It had me muted. Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Doing great.
Awesome. Well, for those of us who may not know you, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So, like you said, my name is Chrissy Bernal, and I am particularly passionate about empowering female entrepreneurs or just women in general, but specifically entrepreneurs because that's what I'm familiar with. And I have that belief because I believe every woman should embrace her worth and confidently pursue the success they desire. So, whatever success looks like for them. And I am the CEO of a brand management and PR agency. And so we help mostly high earning women or high achieving women who are authors, and we help them with their brand management and PR.
That's awesome. And can you tell us a little bit how you got started in this and how you knew that's what you wanted to do?
Sure. So I've always been a writer. I've written since I was a young girl. And so I knew I was going to do something in the creative space, in, something that included writing in it. And so I went to school for my journalism degree. I got a mass communication / journalism degree and ended up actually being the editor of our university's newspaper as well, my senior year. And then life happened. I didn't end up going into journalism. I was still in a communications role, just not journalism. And then fast forward to 10 years after that, my identical twins were suddenly thrust into the global spotlight. We were on 2020, Anderson Cooper, Inside Edition, Germany, France, Australia. Like, it just went viral. And this was before viral was a thing. And so because I had that communications background and I've always known that personal branding was going to be a thing, like that's just something my intuition told me was going to be important. Like so much so that I actually bought our family URLs, first name, last name. I bought those 17 years ago. So I've always known that personal brands were going to be a thing. And so when the girls got all of this sudden global notoriety, I thought, you know what, we need to go ahead and put their brands together just in case they want to use this when they're older. I don't know what they want to do when they're older, but we're going to go ahead and put their brands together, get some PR, see if we can, monetize this at all. And we got some terrible advice, and it cost a lot of money and a lot of time to learn those lessons. So I thought, you know what? I'm the one talking to all the producers. I'm the one handling the contracts. I'll go ahead and just take this over myself. So I pulled from my formal education and what I had already kind of learned along the way and just started doing it for them. And now fast forward 15 years and organically people just started asking me to do it for them. And so I started doing it for them. And then here we are with an agency.
That's awesome. And do you mind me asking if what it was that went viral?
Sure. So the girls are the only set of twins like them in the entire world, which is why they now have 2 Guinness Book records. So one of the twins has primordial dwarfism and dandy walker. So she's missing parts of her brain as well as being a little person. And then the other twin, despite them being identical, meaning one egg from one egg, is average height and doesn't have any parts of her brain missing. So they're what happened was after the egg split, one of them had genetic mutations that happened. And so that's why they're still identical, yet they don't look like it.
Right. That's really interesting. Trying to think. So can you kind of talk to us about I'm very interested in like how things come about, like the psychology behind it. Um, so when this happened, like you said, you knew personal branding was gonna happen. Did you know that, like, this was something you were gonna transition into?
That's a great question. No, at the time I was working in marketing, so I guess I assumed I was always going to have some sort of marketing role, but I was actually working at a gym. I was running a gym and doing the marketing side of it, and I was a personal trainer and used to actually compete in personal training or in physique competitions. And then my husband ended up getting cancer, and so it was too much to handle having to work and raise the kids because we have 3 kids and, take care of him. So I quit my job and just stayed home with him till we made it through that part. And I went into insurance because I thought, you know what, I'm going to do something just completely different. Going to go into insurance because I could make my own schedule. So I went into insurance, won a bunch of awards, won some trips off of it. It was a great opportunity to help me get out of my comfort zone because I never really thought I was good at sales, but I liked helping people. So it was health insurance. So it was a nice way for me to not feel like I was selling because I was genuinely helping people put something together that was beneficial for them. So I did that for a couple years, and then I just decided, you know what, I still need to go back into the creative space. So that's where I went back into it. I started really kind of more on the freelance side of things, solopreneur mindset, and at that time, I still really had a lot of imposter syndrome, even though I have always been smart and I knew that I was able to figure out good strategies for people because I was naturally curious. So I'm always asking why and digging deeper. And so I just started taking on a few clients here and there. And then I guess I found myself really feeling burned out and realized that I was undercharging. I was giving away too much stuff for free. I wasn't really embracing my worth. And it's funny. I've always had coaches and mentors and things like that. And I got this one particular business coach, and he was perfect for me at the time because he was very blunt. And I didn't know that's what I was getting whenever I was signed up with him. But so we went over my sales for the year, and he goes, "Well, that's not very impressive." And I was like, "Ow!" But it made me take a look and go, "You know what? That's not actually impressive. I can do better." And I think subconsciously I was afraid to do better. Um, I think I was afraid of not being able to handle growing a team. And even though I've always been a leader, so I don't really know why I had that imposter syndrome going there and why I was kind of holding myself back. And it was once he said that, the flip just like went whoop, and I was like, boom, I can do it. And since then, our revenue has doubled year over year. And
That's
now I'm
awesome.
not gonna lie, this year's been a little messy because we grew so fast that, all those systems and processes and whatnot I didn't have in place because I wasn't expecting to grow so fast. So that is one thing I would redo, is to go ahead and start with the systems and processes even before I had enough clients or other team members or something like that. I would go ahead and get those in place before I grew, because this time last year I had one part-time person, and now we are a team of 5. It was a lot to grow.
Wow. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, especially, like, so sorry, I'm someone, I would say I definitely have squirrel brain. I was I'm like, I will be bouncing, but so that's why sometimes I'm like, "Take a minute, just collect my thoughts," because there's a lot, I wanted to say there. So, my first thought was I'm trying to think. I'll just go off what I remember, and the rest will come back to me, I know.
Sure.
But, yeah, I definitely relate with what you were saying with, like, the imposter syndrome and feeling like it was something that someone actually I was talking to recently was saying that it's very common that a lot of people, they want these things, but in maybe they, part of that is like fame or whatever, but it a lot of people are scared of what comes with it, like
Mhm.
with scaling, things like that, because it is a lot of responsibility, and it's kind of that thought of like, how am I going to be able to handle this? So I really commend you on having those thoughts and just pushing through anyways, and like realizing like, oh, maybe I could have done this better. But then it's a great thing because now when you help other people, you know what to do and help them to avoid that. So I think that's
Exactly.
really cool. Um, yeah, and I had another thought too. What about marketing really interested you? Like when you initially were getting into it?
So I have always been interested in how companies bring their products to market. I remember as a kid always watching commercials and really judging them and saying, that was a stupid commercial. Why'd they do that? That messaging's not on point. Or I would look at a commercial and say, oh, here's how I would have done it. And I've always been interested by jingles and logos. And even today, I know I annoy my husband because I can sing the jingles to just about anything. And we'll drive along and I'll see the sign and sing the jingle. And he's like, how do you remember all of these? And so I've just always been fascinated by how brands tell their stories and how they are shaping the perception of what they want their audience to think about them. And, PR is one of the oldest uh, parts of marketing that existed. It was usually people attribute it to Barnum, as in, Barnum and Bailey, as him being the first person to actually do PR. And I don't know, I've always been fascinated by the story aspect of it and the perception building of it.
Right. And I can relate to that, but kind of in a different aspect. Like I grew up watching horror movies with my mom. And so but that's very much been like how I've been with it. Where I will point out things all the time to my mom, or like my stepmom, she would always watch those Lifetime movies.
Oh,
And
God.
within the first like 5-10 minutes, I'd be like, this is exactly what's gonna happen. And she'd be like, would you stop? And I'm like, it's just fascinating to me. So I relate to that, but kind of in different things. I'm now more so with trying to build my following and stuff, getting into that marketing aspect and trying to figure that out. But I definitely would say that's kind of something more that's come recent because of learning like this is what I want for my life. I want to have my own businesses and own branding and my own podcast, which I've completed one of those things. So
Kudos. And I used to have a podcast. 10 years ago, I had my own podcast. So I know it's a lot of work. So kudos.
thank you. Yeah, I feel like it could be a lot too, and sometimes it's like I notice I still have like certain limiting beliefs that hold me back in aspects. So right now, I just started coaching, so that's something that I'm working on. And it's like because one of them is like having that fight or flight and like being scared and running away from things. And it's like, I know that those things are good for me and I want them, but there's something in me that makes me want to run away. So it's like right now I'm working on that. I'm like really trying to hold true to myself and like keep my word on things. So
Well, one thing that I also attribute the switch to was I really started studying quantum physics. And I've dabbled in quantum physics for a year, years or so. But in the last like 3 or 4 years, I really dove in and wanted to learn the science behind it. Not, a lot of times people will think it's woo. I wanted to know the science, like show me the science behind it. And, you know, people often hear what Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And that's just essentially what quantum physics is. It's all about your mindset and whether or not you're going to focus on the doom and gloom, or if you're going to focus on the what if and it's possible and those sorts of things. And there's also a Bible verse, Mark 11:24, that essentially says ask, believe, receive. And so that's that's where I operate under. And I know that if I don't get what it is that I'm wanting, something better is coming that's better for me. And so I just hold to that.
right. Yeah, I feel like I'm still learning a lot of those things. And I'm like, sometimes I have to remind myself, I'm like, you're only 21. Like, you're not going to know it all. Calm down. Like, sometimes I like it about myself because I realize I'm very eager to learn. I'm very eager to like progress. But then sometimes, like, I realize like it's hard for me to celebrate the little wins. So I'm like, that's something I'm really working on. Like, slow down. Doesn't mean like don't take action. Just means like recognize what you have right now and like how good you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing with social media is there's a bunch of lies on there and facades that make people in their 20s think that they're behind when they're not. Martha Stewart didn't even start her, empire until she was, I believe, 60. KFC guy, the guy who started Kentucky Fried Chicken, he was 50. Like, there's time. There's
Right.
plenty of time. Yeah, there's so many examples of that too, where people shoot. Even oh my gosh, he's a super super wealthy guy. Not Madoff, one of the other guys, but he's worth like $86 billion or some insane amount. He didn't achieve 90% of that until after he was 60. And so it's not about seeing the big waves happen all of a sudden. It's all the little things that you're doing in the process that are going to eventually lead to that big wave.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely something like, and I'm very much someone who for the longest time felt like I had to figure these things out by myself. So now like I'm really trying to work on that. Like it is okay to ask for help and to like get advice and stuff from other people, which is why I just started the coaching because I really wanted that like extra guidance.
That's good. That's awesome. Yeah, you definitely, like I said, I think everyone needs a coach of some sort, and it's going to be a different coach at different aspects of your life, depending on where you are. And like where I am now, I need to be coached by somebody who's at an 8-figure business because I need to see that next level. What does that next level look like?
Right. Yeah, that's a very good way to look at that, like where you want to go, and that's kind of like where the coaches should play a role.
Exactly. And, honestly, if I would have sought out maybe an 8-figure coach 7, 8 years ago, I don't think I would have been ready to receive what they were telling me because I hadn't set my own foundation and learned what I needed to learn to prepare me to be the person who could receive that.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense because it's like having different people, like different coaches for different parts of like throughout your life. It's like finding the right people, like you said, for where you are at in that moment. So it's like, yeah, that probably wouldn't have worked out as well because it probably would have been a lot on you at that time.
Mhm. And, I used to hear it all the time and I didn't believe them. People would say it's harder to make your first 100,000, your first 6K, uh, or six figure, I mean, than it is to make the next ones. And I thought there is no way that's true. It's totally true. Once
Mhm.
you hit 6 figures, it's so much easier to keep going. Like it's just so much easier for it to multiply. Um, so if you're not at that 6-figure mark yet, and that's where your goal is, just know that you're in the struggle part. But after you hit that, it's going to be so much easier. So just keep your eye on that. It's about to get easy. I'm closer to getting easier.
Right. And it's a lot of like trial and error during that point. So
Oh
like
gosh, yes.
work worked on, a lot with your mindset and your business, what things work, what don't. So it's like then once it kind of starts to fall in place and you hit that mark, like you said, then it would become easier because you've already learned a lot of those things.
Yeah, and probably have spent well over 100,000 more on education after college. So even though I've got my formal degree, I've gotten various certifications, taken various courses, masterminds, workshops, coaches, that sort of thing. So I definitely have spent over 100 grand in that after college.
Right. Which I feel like is like what you just, I don't know, because it's like you're always learning throughout your life. So I feel like it's always going to be a thing that you just invest in, which
Yep.
like, it's great, but then when you look at the end, you're like, "This is how much money."
It's a
It's
lot
like,
of
in
money,
the
yeah.
grand scheme, it was so worth it, but then, like, looking back, you're like, "This is how much it costs to, like, you know what I mean, learn all these things." It is a lot of money, but it is so worth it because you're learning from so many people who've been through what you've been through and who know how to get over those hurdles, so
And, I read every single day as well.
that's awesome. Yeah, I've been, like, taking courses. I'm trying to get back into liking to read because I used to read a lot when I was younger, and then it just became a thing of, like, I just don't like to read, and then now it's like, I like courses, and I do like audiobooks, but sometimes I just realize I'm like, I just need to do it in chunks because I think I look at it and I'm like, "That's a long book," like, some of them are, like, 20, 30 hours long, like, if you're listening to it. So I just like to, like, break it up. I'm like, "Do this amount of time each day," so that's kind of what I've been doing.
Well, one of the things I do is called the, Miracle Morning, and so that's
I
where,
read
you
that. Mhm.
include reading as part of your morning. So I do the Miracle Morning, and, some days it's challenging to settle my mind and, do the visualizations or do the meditations you know, and I have come to learn that that's okay. Okay, so that wasn't a very focused meditation. It is what it is today. We'll try again tomorrow. Move on.
Right. And, like, for me, I was, like, very consistent in a lot of things, and then I kind of fell down into, like, getting into my own head. And so now I'm at the point where, like, I'm picking myself back up, but I'm taking smaller steps because I noticed me trying to push to be back where I was at that point where I felt like I was doing so good just kind of was unrealistic. Because 'cause I'm like, "Right now, you're not doing any of those things." So to jump right back into it, like it's nothing kind of is hard. So, been doing like 2 days a week of like working out, and those days I wake up early and I do, like you said, like meditating and reflections, and I do coursework. Um, and I noticed too, it's like for me after working out, I notice that's when I have a really good meditation right after.
Mm,
'Cause when I try to do it, like, either in the morning or at night, I just feel like it's hard for me to focus, but when I do it right after I work out, I feel like I'm still having that adrenaline and I feel, like, so clear
that's
in my
awesome.
head. So then when I do that meditation, that's when I notice, like, I'm having that full effect of actually being able to focus and feel that calmness, you know what I mean?
Nice, nice. Um, let's see. One of the other things that I do remember helped me was Mel Robbins's 5-second rule. And
Mm,
it's not like the dropping it on the floor rule. It's a when you think about doing something, do it within 5 seconds so you don't talk yourself out of it. So, like when you wake up, if you struggle to get out of bed, tell yourself, I've got 5 seconds, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then rocket shoot out of bed. And it's like that, I found that it's helpful with anything. Gonna go to the gym. Oh, I don't want to go to the gym. Nope, you've got 5 seconds to get your clothes on, So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, start putting on those clothes. So yeah, she calls it the 5-second rule, and that was a really helpful thing for me to learn years ago.
right, I've heard that one. My friend kind of, introduced me into that, and I've watched some of her podcasts. I love Mel Robbins. She's
Yeah, she's great.
very good at what she does. For me, I with waking up is something that I've struggled with a lot, and it's been of like being in a state of consciousness to even make the decision. Like I felt like that was very hard for me. I feel like it's so easy for me to just fall right back asleep and not even think about it. So now I started doing stuff like putting my phone all the way across the room
Yeah.
and having alarms on my alarm clock and having my string lights flashing because for me, I tried them individually. None of it really worked for me, but I noticed when I have so many things that are going at once, I'm, like, overstimulated and I rush out of bed because I've got several alarms going off and the lights are flashing, and I'm like, "What is
Whatever works, whatever works.
Right, and I'm like for me, I'm like, I noticed it kinda seems like something that would happen, like, if you had a drill sergeant, but I'm like, I need it because that's been working for me with getting up at 4 AM because that's one of my goals is to get up and have a couple hours before work to really work on my mindset and to work out, and so that's been helpful, but I know for a lot of people, you probably don't need all of that at once. For me,
Yeah.
it's the only thing that seems to work.
What I've discovered too is, just because maybe I take an hour in the morning to do my miracle morning, if that's not conducive for your schedule and you can do 30 consistently, great. Do the 30. Do what works with where you are right now, as long as you can be consistent with it and don't give yourself opportunities to talk yourself out of it. When I was a personal trainer, I would have clients who would try and jump all in and I'm going to go zero sugar, and they'd go complete cold turkey on stuff, and then they'd be right back at it in about a week or so, if they even lasted that long. And so I would used to tell them, let's just start with one thing. Let's try one thing. And then you can get that consistently. Then we'll add something else. So yeah, you've got to meet yourself with where you are. And, there's a fine line with meeting yourself and also giving yourself excuses. So you got to be honest with yourself and then meet yourself where you are.
Right. And like for me, I felt like, oh, because I'm setting such like a smaller goal, like I felt like I wasn't putting in enough effort into it. Like I just was like, oh, you should be able to do this. But then I realized like same thing with like going from having sugar and stuff and then just completely cutting it out cold turkey. It's like too, it's like your body is craving that because it's so used to it.
Yeah.
And then so when you're like, oh, I'm not gonna do it at all, it's like a shock to your body. And then it's so much easier to go back because you're not weaning yourself off it. You're like, no, I'm just done. So it's like same thing with working out. It's like you don't work out and then you're like, I'm gonna work out 5 days a week. And you're like, oh my gosh, like I don't want to work out at all because I went from nothing to 5 days. So like mine has been at least 2 days. I always like to set at least goals because I know if I work out just 2, I met my goal. If I work out 5, I went over, but that's not an expectation.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. I use the full focus planner. And so I do a combo of that and the Business Made Simple by Donald Miller, his mentality. And so I choose 3 things each day that I really need to get accomplished. Like those are my goals. And if I got those 3 things accomplished, I do that for business and personal. If I got those 3 things accomplished, success. All the other things, it's okay. They can wait. And I have found that to be much more manageable, to where I don't look at the to-do list and go, oh my gosh, I did not get anything done today. Instead, I can look and go, you know what? I got those 3 important things done. Maybe tomorrow, one of those other things on my to-do list will be one of the 3 things.
Right. Like for me, I feel like I kind of struggle with either being overly analyzing things or I'm just like, oh, I'm like, well, like I'll be okay with this. So my thing has just been like I create a schedule every Sunday for the next week and then I kind of just take it day by day and I'm like, I'm going to attempt to accomplish all the things on here. But if I don't, I understand like maybe something happened, maybe I slept in or so I just kind of track it like, for example, today my goal was to get up at I think it was like 7, and I slept in until like 12 PM,
Oh,
and I yeah, and I was a little upset, but normally I would like the old me would just let that affect my whole day and be like, "Well, I already started off bad, like, I didn't get wake up at 7, I woke up a few hours later." But I just kinda took it as like, okay, so what happened from last night till now that made it so I didn't wake up? And then I just kind of write down like, well, I didn't set up all of my alarms. I didn't have my alarm clock go off. I didn't have my string lights set up. So I just kind of write out and then I'm like, well, I'm gonna try again tomorrow. Like that's just kind of
exactly.
in my mind.
Exactly. Yeah. You have to give yourself grace, but also be honest with yourself as well. And Donald Miller recently posted on social media to write down everything about yourself that you would like to work on and be honest with yourself, brutally honest, not judgmental, but honest. So, like, let's say you don't work out like you want to. Don't judge yourself for that. Just go, okay, that's what it has been. We're going to see what we can do to change that. And put it down on your list and start working on that. But I like the way he says to write the things without judging yourself, just acknowledging, and then make the plan to move forward.
Right. And something that's been really helpful for me is kind of writing out, okay, these are things I want to do. What could I do that would help me to accomplish that? So, like for me not waking up, that's why I wrote down, okay, so this is what I could have done that would have helped. And it's being like, I'm accepting that that's how today was, but realizing, like, okay, I need to make sure that I try and get these things done for tomorrow. Um,
Exactly.
so it's just like being like, okay, well, I want to work out. Well, what are the first steps? Well, for me, I work out at home. So make sure you set out your yoga mat and set out your kettlebell. You know what I mean? Just kind of that's the first step. Cause then once you set it out, it's like, okay, well, it's out. You know, I might as well work out now. Like,
Yeah, exactly. That's funny.
yeah. So my thought is just like the first step. So it was like, okay. And I've heard another one. It's like one of those tips. I forget who it was, but um where you just do like 3 minutes of work and you can choose after that 3 minutes whether you want to keep going
Mm.
or if you want to stop, so at least you're like, well, I know I did 3 minutes of it, but most of the time you've gotten in that flow of like, oh, okay, now I'm in the flow of doing this work, so now I can continue. So it's just kind of another thing I've heard that works.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I make my schedule for the week, I will try to build in a little bit of whoops time. Like, whoops, something came in and interrupted my flow. So it's okay. I cushioned an hour here, so that'll be fine. And I learned that from one of my business coaches.
It's really good. Yeah, I feel like for mine, I always just trying to be like today I just kind of try to reschedule everything into being like, what can I get done with the time I have left for the day? I feel like
Mhm.
I'm trying to get better with scheduling like time being adequate of like having extra time for certain things. Cause like before it kind of was like minute to minute, like,
Mhm.
okay, this and then right after that. But I'm like, sometimes like you need to have a break or allow a couple extra minutes. So, like you said, if something goes wrong.
Like how traffic was awful today and delayed me. I mean, sometimes things happen and they are what they are and you just move on.
Right. Like, it doesn't ever bother me. I'm very chill, so, like, when people are like, "I gotta reschedule," or something's going on, I'm like, completely understand, especially with I feel like how the last few months have been with the hurricanes and everything. It's just kind of been a lot for people, so I get it.
Yeah, because I'm in the Houston area, so we've had just some pretty interesting weather. Thankfully, you know, we're past most of it now, but yeah, the weather has been insane for much of the US.
Right. Yeah. I feel like I don't know, my mom's kind of more lax because my mom's also, like, an entrepreneur. She is, like she has her own podcast and stuff, and I'm kind of like in between because I would say I'm somewhere I can be flexible, but I also like to be on time. So
Mhm.
sometimes, like, well, my mom's like, "Oh, it's fine if my guests are super late or whatever, or an hour late," and I'm like, I'm flexible, but most of the time, like, I'm like, if we can be, that would be great, and that's why I always try to get early. Obviously, things happen. I don't that I'm like, that is fine. But I mean, like, I like to be like, "Okay, we're gonna meet at this time just to have, cause technical issues." But
Yeah.
my mom, cause like, my mom, she's more lax, so it's like they're supposed to start at a time, they'll be like half an hour or whatever, and then
Oh, that would drive me nuts. Yeah, that would definitely drive me nuts.
and then the episodes are supposed to be an hour, but they end up being, like, almost 2 hours, and I'm like, "Mom, we said an hour," like,
That's
that's where I
funny.
get a little, like, picky about it. I'm like, "I allocated this time in my schedule, Mom."
Yeah, you want to definitely respect your own time, while being flexible in case things do happen,
Yeah,
obviously. But you want to be flexible, but not have your boundaries broken
right.
or disrespected. Like if I have a client who's continually 20, 30 minutes late to meetings, they clearly don't respect my time and will either need to address it or I'd need to fire them as a client. Um, because it's not cool to waste someone's time either, but also have grace if those occasional things happen.
Mm, yeah. I always feel like too, it's like I used to be way more particular about things, like because I have OCD, so I was way more like strict on things, but I've kind of over the years gotten more lax on certain things. I still have things that kind of I like it a specific way. Like I like to have my stuff displayed a certain way in my home. And it's like if my boyfriend like moves it a little bit, like doesn't put it in the right spot, I'm like, it's not in the right spot.
That's funny. I get it. I'm the person who, if I'm at the doctor's office or whatever, and I see something on the wall that's crooked, I have to go push it and straighten it.
Yeah, that's me too. Um, I'm gotten better too because it's like when I was younger, it was really bad where I would make my bed and I'd sit on it and it would crinkle and I'd have to get up and fix it like over and over. And now I'm just like, no. Sometimes I tell myself like, just don't look at something because it will stress me out. Like not in a certain way.
That's
But
funny.
so, um, what did I have a thought? So could you talk to us a little bit about balancing being an entrepreneur as well as being a parent?
Sure, absolutely. It is rather challenging to juggle both. One of the things, though, that I have been really intentional on doing with my company is building a company culture where it works with your life and not against it. So, like if one of our team members has the kids program that they need to go to at 10 a.m., go to the kids program, get your work done later. It's like you're a grown up. I know you know how to get your work done, so you'll figure it out. And the thing that I guess is a little different for me is with having one of the twins is considered special needs, so she will always live with us and always need assistance. Um, while she is rather independent, I do have to help her many times during the day, whether it's with her lunch or reaching something, or sometimes doors are even too heavy for her, or she can't drive, so I have to take her everywhere that she needs to go. And so I'll forever have a child at home that I have to balance my company with. But that's also where asking for help, having a team, that sort of thing. So um, it's just learning that I don't have to try and accomplish everything all by myself. My husband and I split up a lot of the tasks. He knows that, okay, if I've got a lot of meetings this week, maybe he's going to have to handle a chore that normally I would handle. Or he cooks a lot because he knows that he can cook and I can work. And so it's just balancing as well, asking for help, knowing that you don't have to be perfect at it. Um, just giving yourself grace, definitely giving yourself grace.
Right. Yeah, I feel like that's good to have a partner who's able to kind of help alleviate those stresses and also have that team that can do that as well.
Yeah, and even if you're single and having to juggle it all at once, one of the things that I did that helped the fastest was hire somebody to clean the house. Not on a like not every day, obviously, but just give me additional support so that maybe I could get that deep cleaning out of the way and not have to do it. And so maybe it's hiring an assistant to help a couple hours a week or something like that. Or maybe it's having your laundry sent out instead of you doing your laundry. You've got to find ways to balance things. Dan Martell has a really good book called Buy Back Your Time. And that one essentially shows you what is it costing you to keep doing all of the things you're doing, compared to like maybe if, like, let's say I had a client whose book needed to be mailed to someone. Does it make sense for me to do the mailing of it myself? Or would it be more effective if I hired somebody to go do that? It's, just looking at all the little tasks you do and seeing which ones are really going to move the needle in your business and which ones should be done by someone else so that you can move the needle.
Right. Yeah, that's very true because too, it's like as an entrepreneur, that's like one of the things you really strive for is to be able to buy back your time. And so I know that there's a lot of people that invest a lot of money to be able to have that, time with their family or to focus more on other priorities.
Hmm.
And I think that's like really something that at first may seem kind of scary of like, oh, well, because money is a thing that is a stressor for a lot of people. But
Yeah.
like you said, it's just kind of something you have to think about, like, what is this gaining for you? Like, what is it providing versus what are you losing? Because if you just look at the money aspect, it's harder to see what you could gain from it.
Exactly. And, like, let's say there's something that you absolutely cannot stand doing. Like, let's say washing your car or something like that really just drains the life out of you. You shouldn't be doing it, really. You should hire someone who can at least help you with it. Um, and like, once I hired my first part time person, within a month, I signed on 2 new clients. So while I might have thought, oh, I'm going to temporarily lose income by spending money on hiring someone else, the opposite was true. And I was able to free up so much of my own space and my own zone of genius, area, that I was able to take on 2 new clients. And so our revenue increased.
Right. Yeah, it's like also getting another perspective, because that provides more insights from other people and can kind of see too, like, okay, maybe this is like something that we could tweak and, kind of amplify what we're already doing. So,
Oh gosh, yes. Yeah, that first team member, she has been a lifesaver. My whole team in general, but I mean, she was the first one, and just things that she would come up with, I was like, oh, yeah, I didn't even think of it that way. Awesome. Yes, let's do that.
right. So I wasn't sure because I know I had asked that into your response. Did you want to do the full hour or did you want to?
I'm game for whatever.
Okay, because I know it's about to be 8 o'clock, well, my time. So just wanted to know. But so yeah, we'll still have a little bit of time if you wanted to do that till the full hour mark.
Sure.
Awesome. Well, let's see. So I know another thing you mentioned that you'd like to talk about is going from a solopreneur mindset to a CEO. Could you kind of talk to us a little bit about that?
So that's what I was kind of touching on a little bit earlier. And I was really in that solopreneur struggle, like hustle, have to do it all by myself. And I really didn't envision myself as someone who wanted to build a team. And it wasn't really until I also got a really strong understanding of what my why was. Like, what's my ultimate goal? Yeah, sure, money's great. What do I want to do with the money? What do I want
Mhm.
to do if I had unlimited funds? What would I want to do? And so once I established what that was, then I kind of did a work back, and I said, okay, well, if I want to get to this place, this is what I have to do. And so that is going to require me to build a team. I can't just do it on my own. And so I got my organization chart, my ideal org chart out, and just started putting it together one piece at a time.
Right. And that's very helpful. I've heard some people, I know everyone kind of goes through that process differently, but I've heard something that people have said that really works with that is kind of going backwards, like from where you see the end of your life being and kind of working backwards to where you are now. So that kind of provides of like, okay, this is the very end goal, like what I want to achieve when, my last moments. And this is kind of what would, go from there to where I am now.
Yes. So I mentioned earlier that I use a little bit of the Business Made Simple stuff by Donald Miller. One of the things he has everyone do in there is write your obituary. And
Hmm.
then you work back from that, is the decision I'm making right now going to end up allowing that obituary that I want to be true? And it was an interesting way of measuring what you should say yes and no to.
Right. I feel like I haven't gotten there yet. I'm kind of at the 30 years from now mark, but I still feel like I haven't figured out what is that very final thing and kind of, but for me, it's kind of been quite a journey on figuring that out, and I still obviously feel like I haven't quite figured that out, but I'm still kind of figuring out what exactly, because I have so many things, like so many interests and things that I'm like, I want this to be a part of my life. Like I know I want to do these things, but it's like, what is that main thing? That has been the thing that I'm still trying to figure out.
Well, and one thing that if I could tell myself when I was in my 20s was that, a lot of times people look at 40 or 50 and they think, oh my gosh, my life's going to be over by the time I hit 40. I can attest it does not end when you hit 40. I actually enjoy this part of my life much more than I did the earlier part. Once you hit 40, it's like you start to really know yourself. You start to really understand your values and your boundaries, and you stop caring quite as much what people think about you. And you realize that mostly what they think about you is a reflection on themselves instead of you. And so, yeah, I like to tell younger people that you're just getting started. You got plenty of time.
Right. I just feel good about, like, I definitely feel a lot of people my age haven't figured out as much as I have. So in those days, I'm like, I don't feel behind because I do feel like I've done a lot of work already and
Yeah.
I've been through a lot already. But it is that thing of like, oh, I have to figure it out now. And it's kind of like, it's a thing where I know it's because I'm ready to really dive in and I'm ready to help people, but it's kind of feeling like not having that full clarity of like what is it exactly that is your thing. But I know I have time to figure that out. I just kind of I'm like so eager to get to that point. I'm like I want to be hitting these goals and I already have these businesses and everything. And so sometimes, like I said, I struggle with slowing down.
Yeah, and I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier too. Like a lot of times you'll see these kids who have not done the mental work like you're doing right now, the emotional work, and they'll achieve a level of like monetary success or fame or something like that. But then it all comes crashing down because they weren't ready for it. And so that's what we need to focus on, is just realizing that whatever we're going through right now should be preparing us for when we achieve what it is we're looking to achieve. And, that's also why so many people win the lottery and then still end up broke, is because they weren't ready for that. They did not prepare, because money only amplifies who you are. It doesn't actually make you a worse or better person. It just amplifies. So you've got to prepare beforehand.
Right. And I feel like too when you're just looking at it's also like the mindset of with money because for me like mine is more I want to get to these points because of what the money would provide me,
Yeah.
not the oh, because it's lots of money, I could just go blow money. It's like because I have these certain things that I want to achieve in my life, have multiple houses, have multiple businesses, want to provide, a good future for my future kids. I want to be able to travel the world. I want to have a farm. So it's like it's more me of like I'm so eager to get to that point of having that money because of what it would provide me, not because I'd have the money I could just spend it and blow it on tons of things.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
feel like when you have a good mindset of like what you would do with the money and like what money is in itself, not like the superficial aspect of it.
Yeah.
It
It's just a tool.
right.
Yep.
But a lot of people that's why too it's like you said it's like you'll win a lottery but then it's like to blow all the money because they're not thinking about oh what could I utilize this for? It's like oh what could I spend it on and just blow it away.
Yep. Exactly. So you should give yourself a pat on the back for doing all the work now that's going to be needed for when you're that person 20 years from now.
Thank you. And two, it's like something I'm trying to embody is like I've heard a lot of people say is like because well when I say a lot of people I love to watch mindset videos like on YouTube And there's quite a few girls that I watch on there that like one of them, her name's Tom Carr. She is kind of, I think she's a couple years older than me, but I very much like the things that they teach, like the mindset and like how to build yourself up and to be like strong within yourself. And so like for me, I'm trying to work on being that person that I want to be and embracing that now. So
Mhm.
like thinking,
Exactly.
oh, this is where I want to be. So now I need to start living like I'm already there. Like I'm already, high value woman who's already has these businesses and everything. So I kind of trying to train myself of like, well, what is she doing? And
Yeah.
I need to do that now.
What is she thinking? What is she eating? What is she consuming? What is she wearing? Yeah, all the
Yeah,
things. I do actually, I write those things out every day as well.
that's awesome. Yeah, I feel like I'm happy with where I am now. I feel like it's kind of taking me a while to be happy, but I feel like I'm just very confident in myself and like where I'm going. Like I know I don't have it all figured out, but like I know I'm making good steps.
Well,
And so,
let me let you in on a secret. Nobody has it all figured out.
right,
Nobody does. Even the people, even that Tom Carr person you mentioned, she still has areas of her life that I assure you, she's like, "Oh, how do I figure this out?"
right. Yeah, and too like and sometimes I say like in some of these videos I watch is that like you never, it's like you overcome stuff but you don't, because it's like it's never like you're fully out of something, or you know what I mean. It's like there are better days than there's others, so there's going to be days where you feel like, oh, I don't have these limiting thoughts, whatever, but then you have it the next day, and it's just like learning how to train yourself to get out of those patterns. So it's like it's may seem like all these people have it figured out and that they've overcome things. It's just more like they still struggle with it, but they just know how to pick themselves back up quicker than you know what I mean, maybe where you're at. It's just learning to like be able to have that resilience. So
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. I mean, I would say probably 5 years ago, if I would have had something that maybe I did that I was like, "Dang it, I shouldn't have done that." I would have stuck on that a lot longer than now. If I go, "Dang it, I shouldn't have done that." All right, here's the game plan for next time. All right, let's go. And then I move on.
yes, that's how I feel too now. It's like I feel like my pickup time. That's I don't know what else you'd call. I
No,
mean,
I like that. I like that.
honestly, I'm like, my pickup time is quicker. Like the old me, waking up at 12 today would have beat myself up. I would have sat in that for a couple weeks. That's just how I was. It was very easy for me to switch, being like, yeah, I'm doing so good. And then I have a setback. Oh, now I'm depressed and I'm not doing good. And now it's like, I feel like I sit in that for a second. I'm like, oh, I really don't like that I woke up late today, but how can I make sure that tomorrow that doesn't happen again? And
Yeah.
if it does, it's just realizing tomorrow, the day after that, is just another day. It's just another day. You just have to keep trying.
Yep. Yeah, that's the key is you just keep trying. And, if you there's something that you need help with to keep you to, not like maybe somebody call you, at a certain time or whatever. So yeah, it's giving yourself grace, knowing when you need help, and knowing it's okay to ask for help, because none of us gets to the top all by ourselves. Nobody's done it. So
Yeah, I mean, and for anyone listening, all of the, you know, really high people up there like Tony Robbins and everything, they all had several coaches, like, and help from different people. And, it's just realizing like you can't have that lone wolf mentality, because it's like you can only get so far by yourself, but when you have a team and you have other people that are there for you, it kind of builds like a stronger foundation, because you realize I have all this support and like all these people who are there to help me.
100%. That community is really important.
Yes. So I know we're kind of nearing that hour mark. I would like to give you a couple minutes just to talk about whatever you'd want to talk about, anything you feel like we might have not discussed, anything you want to share. I would love to give you the space to do so.
Oh gosh, I don't know. When it comes to when you're trying to figure out things as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, clarity is something that's really important. So the first thing I do with the new client is we get clarity on their messaging, and we really define what problem they solve, what is their audience actually looking for. Another area I wish I would have established earlier was my values and a genuine mission statement. I know a lot of times you'll see these kind of ethereal mission statements that companies will put out, and you're like, what does that really mean? So actually putting together a real mission statement, actually sitting down and establishing my values, and then making sure that I hire people who align with those values and can get on board with the mission. And it's just made it so much easier. I wish I would have done it earlier, but I didn't, so that's okay. I have now, so.
Right.
But yeah, I guess clarity.
Right. Yeah, I feel like with anything, it's like you have to figure out the root of it, like why you're going to do something. Because when you don't, it's kind of like you're not exactly sure why you're doing it. You're just like, I'm just doing it. So like for me, my thing was like I wasn't reminding myself of my long-term goals, so I felt like it was hard for me to stick to things because I wasn't reminded of why I was doing it. I just was like, I know this is good for me. I know working out is great, and eating healthier, it's like great, but not reminding myself of that long term of, okay, well, why actually do you actually want to do this? Because it's not just to work out. Like that's not the root.
Yeah.
So it's having to find out, okay, what, like you said, like what is the purpose that you're serving? What what is your mission? What is that end goal? Like what does it look like? What do you see yourself doing with this? So
And one thing I'll add to that is it's okay to change that as well.
yeah.
Because certain situations will happen, and maybe you'll realize, oh gosh, I didn't realize that was actually a pretty strong value of mine. I think I need to add that.
Right. Yeah. I feel like a lot of people, when you look at their life, it's like there's so many like different patterns, like because it's like you said, new experiences and stuff, like it changes your mindset, and then you're like, maybe like, no, actually, I don't think I want to do that. Maybe I want to do this. And it's knowing that like it doesn't have to be, the final answer, because there's so many other things out there that you could do. Um,
Yep.
so I really agree with that. So I was wondering, for anyone who would want to reach out to you, if you could just let us know where they could find you.
Sure, I'm pretty easy to find. You can Google my name and a lot of stuff will come up. But my personal website is chrissybernal.com. And then the company website is beabetterbrand.com. And yeah, I'm on most of the socials. I don't do TikTok though, because I find it to be not conducive for meeting my goals. I
Yeah.
don't want to get stuck on there and doom scroll, so I just don't even go on it.
Right. Yeah, I deleted TikTok like in May, I think. So I agree on that. I still get sucked into the Facebook one though, because they've got videos on there. Sometimes I get sucked to it, but oftentimes I'm just like, I just gotta shut my phone off because I'm falling into it. But
Yep, we all do.
I found it's not as easy because the videos aren't as entertaining to me as they would be on TikTok.
Well, and I think they're served up a little differently than on TikTok, so
Mhm.
it's less likely to go, oh crap, I've been on here an hour.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. And for anyone, if you guys wanted to find the podcast, like I said in the beginning, we're on pretty much everything. I always get a little, I'm like, I feel like I wish there was an easier way to just say. That's why sometimes I just say, I'm like, well, it's pretty much on everything, but because it's a long list. It is a long list.
Yeah, I usually just tell people to say wherever you enjoy listening to your podcasts.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably a better way to say it, because I'm often like, oh, this is a mouthful. We're on this, this.
Yeah, there are a lot.
Yeah. So you guys we're pretty much on everything. Sorry guys, today I'm not having the greatest time with speaking, so
You know
I
what? We all have those days.
yeah, some days I'm like a bit more jittery than others, and I struggle so much with like speaking and having that like clear voice. I just stutter, I don't know.
It happens. I was on a podcast, I don't know, last year, and I was saying a word, and I think the word was like clearly or something that when I botched saying the word, it was ironic that the word was what I was trying to do. So we all do it.
Yeah. It's like it feels weird to me because this is like I think my 16th episode.
Nice.
So I'm like sometimes in my head I'm like you should have a lot easier time speaking at this point, but I don't
Oh
know.
gosh, no, you've got plenty of time.
Like it's just I get so excited every episode and the nerves rush in and then I feel like everything I thought just went out the window and I'm like trying to say things so clearly. I'm like, uh
No, you know what? We all have that day, those days.
well, I appreciate it. And for where you guys could find me, if you look up Samantha Bailey, you should be able to find it. I hope. Um I know there's so many out there, so I'm like, but it would be a picture of me if you're watching a video, it would be my face and I'm on Facebook, Instagram. I have a TikTok, but I don't really use it. I still have the page only so that when I start posting clips on there, I'll have a page to post on there. And I want to start doing video clips. And yeah, Sam B Daily Motivation on Instagram and TikTok. So we thank you for coming on tonight and for
Yeah,
letting us
absolutely.
get
Thank
to know you.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course. And we hope you guys enjoyed tonight's episode. And I will see you guys on Thursday with Dolly. We ended up rescheduling. We had some technical issues with her camera, but we are going to be doing that episode on Thursday. So I will see you guys then. And I hope you have a good Monday night.
Bye.